All right, we're live. Welcome everybody. Sorry for a little bit of a chaotic start here. Welcome to the SIG Docs weekly meeting. My name is Jim Angel. I will be your host. Thanks to Tim's passing the baton. Today is March 31st, and it is Tuesday at 10:30 Pacific. I'll send a link to the agenda in chat if y'all haven't already grabbed it. We'll start off. Is there any new contributors joining in this call for the first time that would care to introduce themselves?
Hi, this is Hina. I'm not a contributor, but I've just joined the call to get started.
Awesome. Welcome, Hina.
Thank you.
Hina, did you have any questions or anything we can help you with while you're on the call and you have a bunch of friendly folks here willing to help?
Sure, if I'll have anything, I'll definitely ping anyone. Thank you.
Perfect. It looks like we have a call in, and I don't recognize Davey Garcia, but doesn't mean that y'all are new if y'all want to introduce yourselves. I see Davey just put in chat there, just updated Fedora to 32 beta and the mic stopped working. So it's going to be text only. That is rough. Well, welcome. Hopefully your mic troubles get solved, and I'm going to add you here to the new folks joining us. All right. So moving on to updates and reminders. This week's PR Wrangler is a bunch of question marks. We have had some woes with our PR Wrangler schedule, and we were looking for some folks to fill in. So I did send out a message on SIG Docs maintainers, where a lot of our owners and approvers usually reside. There's a few slots that we're looking to fill, mainly because they're either people who used to be approvers who are no longer, maybe they're not available to, but we're looking to clean up the rest of the approvers for the remainder of the year. Does anybody want to volunteer to be this week's PR Wrangler while we got everyone? Tim? Is that
Jim,
volunteer or question?
I've looked at my schedule and I have not got a lot on at the moment. Yeah, I'll be PR Wrangler.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Fix the format here so you're not highlighted. Perfect. Thank you. And then next week is Peter Zhao, and I reached out to Peter to see what his availability is. Right now it's currently unknown, but I'm putting that up as tentative that we might need someone for next week as well. We'll get this straightened out here and we'll go from there. And so moving on to the agenda. In Docs, release 118 was released. Woo! It was released on March 25th last week. It was delayed a day, but nevertheless, the docs and the blog all landed very healthily. I think that there's still maybe a little bit of cleanup work, but for the most part, the overall release process is complete. So congratulations there, and many thanks to Vineeth and Tim and Karen for helping that release go very successfully. Moving on to the Doxy template, there's no updates from last week in the meeting for those who didn't join us for the APAC meeting. There's a tentative due date of the middle of April. So I would say another 2 or 3 weeks here that we might see some more progress regarding the Doxy template. Moving on to diagrams. David, what you got for us?
So I've did what Zach recommended, kind of created a dumping ground in the issue. I pasted it in the chat just to, place all of the historical blah, blah stuff in there. So that's there. And I've gotten a little bit of traction on it from someone in the community who thought it was interesting, provided feedback, which was actually really, really good. So per his comments, I made some changes. Still very early stages. I want to say it's still in draft, but I do have the an example Kubernetes architecture with some newer icons, and I do have Kubernetes diagram icons there. I built them myself just through raw Google Draw, trying to emulate what's in Istio's diagram guideline, which is far more expansive, obviously. So just looking for more feedback, maybe even some help. I can give some edit rights to folks who want to jump in and make some tweaks, but still early draft at this point. That's where I'm at.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll check that out and provide some feedback where I can. I personally haven't checked out that issue, so I don't want to speak to it without being
No worries.
informed. So
No worries.
appreciate your work on that. And I did update our notes saying that you're looking for more feedback, help, and edits if any folks want to jump in there.
Cool.
Moving on to any PRs needing review or special attention or anything going on in the greater K/website world. Hear nothing? We'll move on. Everything's rolling smooth, or we haven't uncovered what what pain points we have just yet in certain PRs. Moving on to the blog. Caitlin, if you want to give us an update on the blog.
Yeah, so I like to make a call for any volunteers every few weeks here. The Kubernetes blog lives as a sub-project under SIG Docs. So we have a separate group of reviewers and approvers there as well who review all of the incoming blog posts that we have. So we have our bi-weekly meeting today at 11:30 Pacific right after this. So if anybody's interested in getting involved, that's a great place to check out.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So the next item on our agenda that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention here is the merge strategy. And I'm going to be beating this drum pretty heavily here over the next release cycle with the goal of solving some of these problems in the 119 release. So last when we talked about this, Celeste volunteered to create some content for review on how to squash commits. I guess before moving forward, Celeste, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I was going to say I haven't started on that. And the reason that I haven't started is I realized I didn't ask a key question last time, which is who is this merge squashing documentation intended for? Like, am I as an individual contributor responsible for squashing my own commits, or is that something that the approver needs to take care of before something is merged in? Who's it targeted?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So this would be folks who have no idea how to squash a commit as the author of the PR.
Okay.
So there'd be targeted audience for, I'm brand new to using Git. Maybe it's my first contribution to Docs and I get told I need to squash a PR. Where do I go? How do I help? You know?
Okay. Okay, so here's another follow-up question for you then. Our documentation is currently kind of divided into two paths you could possibly take. One is, I really don't know anything about Git. I'm going to use GitHub's UI to make a change. And the other is make a fork, clone the fork locally, do your changes, do the whole Git process. For the person who's kind of going through the normal Git roundabout, I think it's pretty easy to tack on a subject that says squash your commits. But what do we want to do about the person who might be using the Git UI? What's our advice for them? Is it?
Yeah, so this came up in SIG Contribex because they have similar issues of folks who make commits through the UI, maybe aren't familiar with doing squashing their PRs. And the general outcome was we would like to encourage folks to squash it through the CLI first, because there's really no way to squash through the UI.
Okay.
But in the event, though, that it's a technical barrier or a blocker to a PR merging, there is a special label that people who have write access to the K website repository can apply to squash it for them when PROW, which is the piece that does the merging.
Okay. Okay.
So that's kind of like a break glass option that I don't think we want to make that a standard, but we also don't want to not merge a PR because folks don't have the technical know-how to squash their PRs. So that would be a solution that we would involve someone who has write access to apply a label to squash them.
Okay. Okay, that works. Cool. I have the information I need to proceed. Here's one last follow-up question. Sorry to take so much of the floor. Assuming that documentation is a blocker for this going live, do you have like a date you want this by? Or is it just ASAP?
I don't want to say ASAP because it's really, nothing's really that important right now. So okay. I don't want to throw more on your plate than needs to be, but I do want to have that documentation in place before we change the merge strategy. So if folks are unfamiliar with how to do a squash or how things are done, we can link them to documentation versus trying to rewrite that over and over again.
Okay, I'll percolate it up my task list.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. And then the one thing I did want to add on that PR is that Stephen Augustus, as part of the SIG release engineering folks that we meet with, mentioned that he would like to be copied in on the PR when it comes in, just for their general review. The documentation on squashing is really poor today. So their recommendation was to put the documentation in the contributors guide and then link from the Kubernetes website to the contributors guide.
Okay. Is that in kind of the tracking issue?
I don't believe it's in the tracking issue. I can update that because that was something I found out this morning, or not really found out, but had the discussion this morning with
Okay.
the release engineering folks.
Okay.
When we were chatting about it, I mentioned that we could have it dual source, basically have it in both spots. But after all the different dual sourcing pieces we were talking about, it seems to make a lot of sense to have it in a single source and link it out that way.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Any questions about that? Or, if you want, you can always ping me online.
Yeah, I'll ping you on Slack after this.
Perfect. And I'll make sure that I update that tracking issue so we can kind of put these in order. Say, we're looking for this. Here's how we're looking for it. It's a blocker for this PR. We can start to untangle that web, hopefully. Cool. Thank you.
I got a question on that. So when you put together, let's say, fast forward in the future, and you have this documentation on squashing PRs, is there like a one-stop place to get like a full stack of everything? So this is like setting up your environment, getting going with Git, doing the first PR, and then maybe moving on to more intermediate steps, which is squashing PRs. Is there like I'm starting from scratch. I want to get through the basics, maybe a little bit of the intermediate stuff, and that's it? Because right now, the only thing I see is Gwen's Seattle YouTube thing, which is like, 18 hours of in-depth goodness. But I'm just wondering if like there's a dummies guide for CLI for just the nuts and bolts.
So that's a part of another really big PR that I've been working on forever and a day at this point.
Okay.
But it's also it's a dicey issue because we can't just like outright replicate GitHub documentation or like how to use Git. Like we're not the place. But we do have to provide something. So it's kind of a delicate balance. It's never going to be like a one-stop shop because I don't think that's humanly possible with Git. Like, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and I want to say there's parts of it covered in the Start Contributing Guide, but I haven't checked that in a while, so maybe it got cycled out. But I thought there were some preliminary pieces there in the Start Contributing Guide of creating your fork and doing things like that. But I agree, having a start to finish guide would be great, but as Celeste alluded to, it's going to be kind of dicey there. And along those same lines, when we're talking about squashing a PR, for example, K/K or the main upstream Kubernetes repository might be, not that the process would be different, but the repos you're looking at and the forks you're talking about are going to be different than Kubernetes/website. So how do you not dual source, but then also properly reflect that process? So I think there might be some challenges there and some growing pains. And go ahead, David.
I was just thinking for SIG Docs, like what is the version of it's me, Tim, and Celeste, and I've got a blank laptop, and they're showing me how to set up my laptop and set up the environment to do my first PR. And then if I need to squash a PR, what are those commands? Like that informal kind of, coffee shop experience. Is there like a text version of what that would be like if people were just doing some knowledge sharing? Do you get what I'm saying? Not like, hey, you're a Git expert. Show me about all the intricacies of Git. But like, no, I need to do some basic things, and where's the basic commands kind of thing.
Yeah, I like the idea a lot. I think this might be something that would be great to talk about in our quarterly planning, which I'll mention later. But I see a value in it. I see some challenges also with it. So I think that, without going through and seeing what's existing today, what's the state of that, how user-friendly is it, the onboarding process. It's been a while since I've been a new contributor. So I think going through that process again and seeing the existing state and then making a decision based on that would be the best way forward.
That's good.
Any other thoughts before we move on that topic? Tim?
So there's like I'm often an idealist when I come to this stuff. Try and be quick. Prowl should be able to do the squash for you if you are not sure how to do it. And I stuck a link in the chat to my looking at on the tracking issue.
So what is that link, Tim? Is that saying how you can do it with Prowl?
It is a request for someone with copious free time to change Prowl to make that possible.
Oh.
So today there is a Prowl label that you can apply that is tide method squash, and that label would squash the PR.
So this is a slightly different thing. What I'm saying is I want Tide to, as if it is a repo admin. Maybe I should clarify the point I'm making, but I want a command that does a squash there and then, as if I did it.
Almost like the milestone where you'd have a command in the CLI or the UI that you'd be able to run.
Yeah, like a Prowl command, exactly a Prowl command.
So I brought this up with test infra just to see why you needed write access to change the merge method and why we kind of got in this pickle to begin with. And it turns out that they just in general don't want a lot of folks changing that merge method of Tide via the CLI or via the, sorry, I keep saying CLI, via the UI like in a comment. Maybe it's something we could resurface. Maybe there's a special case for docs, but I know when I initially brought it up, the general opinion was they wanted the repository admins or the people with write access to those repos to be in control of that merging strategy and not to have it all over the place. But maybe there's a way that could be limited to approvers or people who are, elevated in the Kubernetes repository. So
I'll clarify my point in the issue.
Perfect, appreciate it. I'm just taking some notes here so I have it for tracking. Cool. Any other comments on that squash piece before we move on? The one thing I do want to add before we move on is that this is somewhat of a work in progress. So we're talking about creating this documentation for squashing. We're talking about changing the merge method, and there might be some unintended consequences of that, such as folks who are using the UI who don't know how to squash, such as, some of these different roadblocks. If we find out we make this change and things get worse and not better, there's no pain in reverting it back to the old way. So that's something worth keeping in mind, is that we're solving a problem by making this change. And there's no point in keeping this method or continuing down this road if it makes it more painful for folks. So something to keep in mind. All right, and before moving on, does anyone else have anything else for the agenda? All right, hearing nothing, we're gonna move on to the administration component of today's meeting. So we do have a new tech lead nomination from Caitlin, nominated Taylor Dolzel to become a tech lead alongside Karen and Tim Bannister. And Caitlin has worked with Zach, myself, and obviously she agrees with this as part of the nomination, getting all the members aligning or the alignment there. Also working with some of the tech folks such as Karen and Tim to get alignment there for the membership agreement that Taylor would be qualified to become a technical lead. Taylor's been really great for helping out on the blog, doing reviews, very active in Kubernetes website, and has a lot of experience in Hugo as well as Netlify that will serve our tech lead team very well. Before moving on, Caitlin, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that was a great overview. Thanks for covering it.
Cool. So to make this official, I put air quotes because it's not something we commonly do. We never really had tech leads, and then we had two. Karen and Tim joined not too long ago, and we're really thankful that y'all joined as tech leads. So part of the governance by Kubernetes and the community, there needs to be an alignment between the chairs and also the tech leads to vote Taylor in. The final say is of the co-chairs. So Caitlin and I represent 2/3 of those chairs. Zach unfortunately couldn't be here today. But Zach has said that he agreed with this process moving forward. He agreed with Taylor's nomination of moving into a tech lead. So we have offline alignment with Zach, but then also there needs to be a super majority. And I'm not making up terms, but I'm trying to go from memory here on what we need. But basically, you need 2/3 of a vote saying that we agree as chairs that Taylor becomes a tech lead. So this is the official vote. I am in favor of Taylor becoming a tech lead. And Caitlin?
I'm also in favor.
Awesome. That makes it official. So I'll slam my gavel down, and Taylor is officially a tech lead. So what that means now is that Taylor gets more work.
Yay! Thank you so much, everyone. I'm very excited. Yeah, lots of experience around Digo and some around Netlify, and just happy to help out. Love seeing all the smiling faces, and then when they're not, trying to get them turn that front upside down. So much appreciated. Look forward to working with you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. So the first work that you get cut out for you is you'll need to PR yourself as a tech lead into the link in the agenda there. And if you have any issues with that, feel free to reach out to the SIG Docs channel or one of us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Cool. And moving on here, we have the quarterly review that was scheduled for tomorrow, or that is scheduled for tomorrow, April 1st at 11 a.m. Pacific. I've linked in the agenda for the quarterly planning. Right now, it's more of just an open agenda looking for topics, but I've also included a link in there from our quarterly planning from Q4 of last year. So we can see what that looks like, and if there's anything that sparks any ideas from, definitely check that out and review that. I've included the Zoom link there if someone needs a quick link to it. And before moving on any further, does anyone need an invite who would like to attend and hasn't seen that invite come through yet?
I would. I've not seen the invite come through, Jim.
Okay. Would you mind sending your email in chat or DMing me your email?
I can send you my email right now.
Awesome. Anybody else? Cool. So yeah, David, I'll email you that after we get off the line here.
Thank you.
Not a problem at all. And then if anyone wants to discuss anything at the quarterly planning, this is where we discuss a lot of more of the strategic goals. We talked about videos last quarter, more or less, what are our goals to accomplish this quarter? How do we do last quarter, and what's outstanding? And that's really the main goal of the quarterly review, is taking a look and stepping back and looking at the project as a whole, and less of the day-to-day or weekly pieces there. And with that, that is all I had for today. Does anyone else have any other topics they would like to discuss? On Davey, I saw you just sent in your email in there as well. I've captured that. Thank you. All right. Anything else folks would like to discuss? Celeste? You can do the countdown too. All right. Awesome. That's a SIG meeting. Catch y'all later. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you.